Welcome to the Diane McClay Show, empowering life through choice. Get ready to discover new perspectives, motivation, and balance through Diane's compassionate storytelling and insightful discussions. Whether you're feeling stuck and discouraged or curious and looking for more possibilities, Diane has your back, and she's ready to take you on a journey of self-discovery and expansion. Choice is powerful, and so are you. The Diane McClay Show starts now.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Diane McClay Show, where we are here to help you empower your life through choice. I'm so excited that you made the choice to tune in to us today. We have a super special guest. This is David George Brooks, who's going to be talking to us today about choosing and about gratitude and how you can empower your life through both. David is a fellow media host on the Cornelia Stephanie Media Group at Transformation Talk Radio, and he has been a speaker, a teacher, a coach, best-selling author, I think, of 5 books, a storyteller, and he's a collaborator in making change through gratitude and through choice. I'm happy that he's on our show. David, welcome in for just a minute.
Thank you, Diane. It's just great to be here.
You know, and I am so happy that you're here because just this morning I was listening to a couple of your speech highlight reels. And we are literally kind of saying the same thing from 2 different angles. You talk about gratitude and how you can choose to have that in your life. And I talk about courage and choice and how that can empower your life. So I'm excited to see where this conversation goes today and how we overlap and how we can help people kind of get out of the mind trap of feeling like they can't change anything, feeling like they don't have abundance, and feeling like they can't create their own happiness. So let's jump in real quick. Let's start us off. One thing you like to do is just kind of express gratitude. Tell me one thing today one or 2 things that you are grateful for right in this very moment.
Well, thanks, Diane. And for me, it's almost automatic because to me, I think that if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And I noticed I was out on my walk today and it was a beautiful sunny day, not a cloud in the sky, which as we know is rare in Seattle and maybe somewhat so in Oregon as well. But so it's so great to be healthy. And then I talked to both my sons today. And so just being grateful for having my 2, as I call them, my rock star sons, and having a sunny, beautiful day out there to walk in and kind of think about things and stuff was really kind of sets it off. And I think that's why so much I relate so much to what you and I have talked about in your sort of mantra, choice and courage, the courage to figure out a way to deal with things, which in my focus is being grateful for things and focusing on what you have in your life versus what you don't have. And then the choice, which is why I think this is such a great collaboration with you and me, is because the choice to decide, do you want to be happy or sad or grateful or ungrateful or black or white or red or black or whatever it might be. Every day we get a choice. So it's like you said, it's a great collaboration.
I hear you. And, you know, I'm super grateful that I had a big, massive career shift in the middle of my dream career. If I did not have a career shift, an unexpected one that caused a lot of pain and anxiety, I wouldn't have actually pivoted to doing this radio show, being an empowerment coach, running into you, and then being blessed to do this collaboration together. So I am super grateful that something kind of unexpected happened to me because so much more has come to me since that event that probably wouldn't have come to me in the same way if I had stayed in the same place.
And I'm curious too, Diane, I know you're the host, but I am curious to know how do you then spin that off to encourage other people to look for that event in their life when they can all of a sudden pivot? I know pivot's a big word, but I think that's so fantastic. And for you, was it one specific day or time, or was it a gradual group of things that happened that said all of a sudden I'm taking a left and now I'm going to go right?
I love the synergy, and I don't mind that, you know, we work so well together and bouncing questions back and forth, and I think it's a great lead-in. For me, I don't think it's any one thing, but there was a light switch aha for me that when my identity seemed like it got lost from stepping away from my dream job, when it seemed like I lost my community, when it seemed like I lost my incentive for showing up at work, somebody else was trying to make the choice for me about what I should continue doing if I had stayed with that particular agency. I was a park ranger for 25 years of my life, something I wanted to do when I was in first grade. And there was a point in that dynamic that it didn't fit my value system and I didn't fit the agency. And the agency made a decision for me about where they wanted me to work, which was 6 hours away from my family and my community. And at that moment, the light switch was only I can look out for me. Only I know what's best for me. And when I decided to resign from the position before they moved me to the position they wanted me to be in, suddenly I was super empowered. I felt like, wow, choice is that thing that just lights me up. And that's why, for the listeners who can't see my office, I have 2 words on my wall. One is choice over my right shoulder, and one is courage. And I realized that it takes courage to make difficult choices, but we all have access to courage. And every time we make a choice, we empower our lives. So it's one big pivotal thing. But then, like you say in your gratitude, every day I make a choice to look at what comes into my life and how I frame it. And gratitude is another thing for me that has been fundamental in making sure that I can live a happy, empowered, free lifestyle that I have today.
Well, and of course,
does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And don't soft sell the courage it took to make those choices, to make the courage to make the choice with your 2 words, which I love so much. There's many people that would come to the same point and said, well, I can't risk it. It's just I got to stay with this job and with the Forest Service, whatever it might be, and wouldn't have done it. And that's why I'm kind of curious is where the courage came from and what sustained it. Because for me, I talk about not only gratitude, but a gratitude journal every single day, writing, I am so grateful to Diane McClay for inviting me on her podcast and so forth. And that really plants it and then helps with the courage and then to make good choices, to come back to your 2 key words, which I love so much. But so again, don't soft sell that, because that was something I give you a lot of credit for making that change.
Well, thank you for that. And I want to call out to our audience that I believe everybody has courage inside them. Some people think courage is, jumping off a building or doing something super new or super scary. And sometimes it's just the courage to think differently. It's just the courage to challenge yourself to do something. I broke my right finger one time and I had to start writing left-handed. And I was fascinated at what I was doing left-handed that I wouldn't normally be able to do. And sometimes it's the courage of just shift your normal routine. Just do something different than what you normally do. But I want to ask our producer to roll a couple of photos that I've shared with you. One of the other things I'm grateful for is the ability to get into nature, and I'm super grateful for my eyesight and my physical ability to enjoy it. So the photos that are important to me is nature gives me courage. It gives me the courage to go explore something new, to change how my normal routine is. We have a picture of a woodland snail, and it makes me think about slowing down and breathing. The rough-skinned newt that I bumped into the other day, I just sat and watched it for 3 minutes, and it just had this confidence about where it was going and how it was going to get there. And it didn't seem to be bothered by me as a potential predator watching it. And then just the beauty and naturalness that nature in general offers us in color, texture, whatever it shows up. Nature isn't worried about what it's doing. It's not worried about whether someone likes it or not. And just that simpleness, and I think that's connected to my park ranger story and why I love being outside, is that I think nature just gives us this opportunity to look outside of ourselves and then reconnect back into those things like courage, choice, gratitude, abundance, prosperity. Would you agree with that?
Well, I totally agree with it. And I think, too, when you and I were talking previously about nature, there's something about this world that we live in where we get caught up. I love that term. I just didn't have the time. I got caught up. And so when I ask people, well, how can you express your gratitude? Is it something you're going to write down? Is it going to say? Are you going to recite it? Whatever it might be. But invariably, what makes this so interesting to me is that people will say, I need to get back to nature, literally and figuratively speaking. And so there's like on my walk today, part of it is through a forest where you go and you just look up and you look at the beauty of nature. And then you take that a step further and you see the snail that goes along just steady. And I think of that as every day writing what I'm grateful for every single day. I don't just jump out, or then there's the newt that flies out and goes 100 miles an hour or whatever, and maybe doesn't stop and concentrate on what there is. And that's why I think it's every little journey starts with one step, but the whole thing of doing something something over and over again really reinforces it. And that's how it works for me with gratitude in the gratitude journal as an example. But again, nature, as I say, figuratively and literally, because just the raw beauty of it is just mind-blowing, and it just takes your breath away. And we get in the city, so to speak, out of nature, away from it, and we get caught up and we forget. And sometimes it really does a great job of bringing us back kind of to our base and knowing what's really important.
Right, and I even want to say, you're in the city. You and I are both in the Pacific Northwest, where we have really easy access to vast quantities of diverse nature. But for people that are listening that are in an urban environment, this isn't unattainable for them. If you see a dandelion growing up through a crack in the sidewalk, to me, that speaks about resilience and perseverance. I mean, think of the things that it takes for that one seed to stay in that one crack with just enough moisture and just enough dirt and just enough nutrients to pop up and suddenly be A, an edible flower if it hasn't been sprayed with herbicides, and B, just this point of beauty. So when we're in the city, my challenge to our listeners is to find those things that encourage us to seek a different perspective. I know changing your perspective is important to you, the gratitude guy. So can you speak a little bit about why, you mentioned writing, why is it important to write gratitude down and not just have it in your mind? And then number two, why do we need to incorporate that into our lives every day in order to change what's going on in our brain?
Well, as we think about how much we talk and listen, and we've got one mouth and two ears, and the idea is to talk half as much as we listen and so forth. But when we do talk, our brain hears what we say. And so if somebody will say something like, the reason why it's so important to actually verbalize gratitude, I am so grateful to Diane or whatever, because our ears hear this again, is the same reason why if somebody says to me, I'll tell people, I always remember names, and they say, I'm terrible with names. And I go, you keep saying that, you'll be terrible with names because your ears just heard that. But the thing that makes the writing part so important is that, and I have a little on the gratitude journal, and I know the listeners won't be able to see it, but on Zoom, you hold
that close so they can see your title, because that's one of your books.
There's a little, I don't think you'll be able to quite see the quote, but it's right there, but it's not going to, I don't think
read it to us.
But it says, if you think about it, it's like a dream. If you talk about it, it inspires you. But if you write about it, it empowers you. And it's so important. So to think about it is good. That's excellent. You're focusing on what it is. To actually verbalize it and talk about it is even better. But there's something about taking the pen. They've proven it over. And I am so grateful to Diane to be able to have this conversation today about gratitude and nature and so forth. It plants it in the brain. So it's all about efficacy, if you will, and what's going to be the thing that sustains you over the long term. And so if you can think about it and talk about it, yes, that's great. But if you can write it, it's so much better. And they've even proven that with these, I'm on a laptop and you can type, and that puts it pretty well. But there's something about the good old fashioned pen and the paper and writing it down that really puts it here. And really, that's what we really want, is we want to have it sink into our brain and be there every day to be kind of at the ready to know how much we appreciate things.
Now, you're the gratitude guy, and I've got a theory, and I want to run it by you if that's okay.
Of course.
My theory is that I don't think it's possible, physically, I don't think it's possible to be angry while you have gratitude. Am I wrong?
I think you're probably right. I think it's a kind of a combination of mindset, but there's only so much room in the brain for one emotion. When we have conflicting emotions, I think it's kind of like another one that I make the comparison of is happiness starts with gratitude. I don't think it's really possible to be happy until you're grateful. So I do agree with you. And I think, but then at the same time, I've gotten into philosophical arguments with people, which I love, which is, well, I'm going to get angry once in a while. This is going to happen. I go, I know we're human beings. It's all right. That's going to happen. But for the most part, yes, you are exactly right. And that's one of the reasons why when you fill up that brain cavity of those mindsets with all that positive nature and always focusing on what you have and not worrying about what you don't have. One of the things I've said many times I love is make your strengths productive, make your weaknesses irrelevant. Why do we focus on weaknesses? Forget about it. Make the strengths productive, make the weaknesses irrelevant. So you fill up that brain with that powerful gratitude and focusing on all these good things. Gratitude turns what you haven't to enough. And you're right. There isn't room for anger. There isn't room for a lot of other negative and toxic emotions.
And I think that whether it's anger or frustration or irritation, things that would typically be considered like a negative energy or a negative emotion, if it's true, and I challenge our listeners, like if you can tell me a story of when you know for sure that you were literally, verbally, or writing gratitude, and you felt something negative at the same time, I'd love to hear it.
Exactly.
I'd love to do a study with 1 million participants, and I'd like to find the percentage of people who are physically able to have a negative emotion and gratitude while they're expressing it at the same time. But if it's true that the brain can't handle something negative at the same time as we are, maybe it's off, like 1 minute I'm angry and then I'm grateful, or 1 minute I'm grateful and then I'm upset. But if it's true we can't do it at exactly the same time, that tells me that gratitude is very, very powerful. And I've been reading some studies. I want to make sure I was kind of caught up on it a little bit. But there's a lot of new science out there where people have been studying different parts of the brain and seeing how they get lit up differently in MRIs with people who've been consistently, and not just expressing gratitude, although that's helpful, but I like to say that they incorporate gratitude into their being and into their daily routine. But can you speak to maybe a couple of the benefits of what gratitude does literally chemically in our brain that could affect stress, anxiety, depression, any of those kinds of things?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned MRI studies, because they actually go in and look at the brain. But it's been proven, a lot of research, a lot of studies, and they've gone in, and it does emphasize all those positive emotions by being grateful. And you're empathetic, you're sympathetic, you're helpful, you're really concerned for people, and it tends to really eliminate those toxic emotions like resentment and anger, as you'd mentioned earlier, and so forth. And there's even further studies that show that people are grateful, go to the doctor more often, they physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically feel better, and they've seen it again. And some of those MRIs have shown where it like actually lights up when they're writing in a gratitude journal or talking what they're grateful for. So it's much more. In fact, I think about it because I call it woo-woo once in a while, and I say, well, listen to this gratitude guy. It's all woo-woo, and I go, well, no, not really, and it makes a difference. And I tell a story about, as an example, when I use something in here, this is just show you the impact of a gratitude journal or the gratitude on your mind. In the gratitude journal, every day you write a daily number. And that's kind of taking your temperature, 1 to 10. 10 is the best day of your life, and 1 is one of your worst days. I woke up one day and I was a 2. I was so depressed. I was just having such a terrible day, and I had a talk to do and everything. So I got my gratitude journal, went to Starbucks, got a latte, wrote in my gratitude journal everything I was grateful for. That bumped me up to about a 4 or 5. And then I went and did a talk in Burlington, Washington, up north. And afterwards, this lady came up and said, "You changed my life." And she gave me a hug and bought 3 journals for her kids and for herself. And I went and I sat in my car after the talk, and I looked in the rearview mirror, and I just took it, and I looked at me, and I went, now I was like a 9.5.
Wow.
And I went, wow. And I didn't take a drink. I didn't snort some powder. I didn't smoke some weed thing. I didn't do anything else of these destructive, deadly coping mechanisms. I just wrote my gratitude journal, and then I changed a life. And I went from a 2 to a 4 to a 5 to a 9, 9.5. And I thought that's the power of what that can do. And there's it where you can really critically see it in actually numerical sense. So it's really cool.
I love that you have a temperature check. So not just writing. I mean, this is what it's talking about integrating both choice and gratitude, not just doing it, not just going through the motions, but actually incorporating the energy into your body and then allowing that to come back out. And for me, to being able to say, hey, where am I think it's great. Where are you at the beginning of the day? Before your gratitude, where are you at as you're expressing it? And then at the end of the day or a week later, where are you at? And I would imagine that people see their numbers climb. From
Absolutely.
my personal experience, when I was trying to be very mindful about incorporating gratitude, I would do it at night. A lot of people say prayers at night, which I think is a form of gratitude. But I literally said, I am grateful for, and I didn't know where to start. And this may sound very silly, and if you want to steal this for your next book, it's totally fine. But I did the ABCs. I literally did. So I have kind of a little Dr. Seuss muse in my head, little poetry. So I was like, I'm grateful for the air. Then I'm grateful for my hair. Then I'm grateful for not seeing a bear. And it's funny, but it was like it was a game.
Yeah,
and then
cool.
2, it was like I wanted to see, can I get 26 things that I was grateful for? Mm-hmm. Right? And I was able to do my ABCs in gratitude, A to Z, maybe not all sequentially. But one, it opened up a creative part of my mind, but I got tired. I slept great the next day.
Oh, nice.
And then, so when I'm really stressed out or I have a monkey mind going on before I go to bed, I try to do the ABCs forward, and then I try to do them backward.
That's
right.
Nice.
And what helps is if you try to do it rhyming, but you don't have to. I mean, I'm grateful for my house. I'm grateful for not having a mouse. There's Dr. Seuss. But what I found is it is super crazy easy to come up with 26 or,
Well, and anything, Diane, like that, a little trick or a little game or whatever you want to call it is really helpful. I just did a new gratitude journal and actually have the daily number, and then I have another spot for it at the bottom after you've written everything you're grateful for, because typically it's going to go up. And it's interesting to me because when I do my talks, workshops, keynotes, that type of thing, and I spend quite a bit of time on the gratitude journal and how and why it works so well. And so when I'm selling my books afterwards, one day I come up and the guy grabs my journal. He goes, "Is this your personal one? Is this the one you write in yourself?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Can I look at it?" I went, "Well, don't look at it too closely." But he kind of takes it and he thumbs through it like this. And he goes, "Wow, you write in this every day." And I go, "Have you been listening to the talk? Were you listening or were you like in the back somewhere?" "Of course I write it every day. It makes me feel better. Why wouldn't I write in it every day?" So,
well, let's talk about that real quick. So you have a great format in your book. I've seen it, and actually I've ordered one, so I'm waiting for mine to show up. But how can people get your book? And how can people connect with you? And then we'll kind of come back into some gratitude type stuff.
Everything is That Gratitude Guy. So my website's thatgratitudeguy.com. My email is david@thatgratitudeguy.com. And you can get the journals on my website too, and it's also as well as on Amazon. But the main thing about it is that it's just if you order it and you start doing it and being really aware of it. And this one is called the Brooker's Daily Gratitude Journal, but it'll pop up on Amazon and it's easy to order. But gosh, it's the thing that I tell people, Diane, which is so important. It takes me 5 minutes. I've timed it a million times. It takes me 5 minutes to write in the gratitude journal. But one of the things that I leave people with is I said, you know what? Start at least writing down one thing a day, just one thing every day you're grateful for. And then maybe move that to 3 things a day. And then as you get a little momentum and you start to incorporate it into your daily routine with your water and your vitamins, your meditation and your stretching and so forth, as you do that, then go to maybe a couple of sentences and then finally the whole journal. But you'll see building that momentum and the mindset that it creates for you is so powerful. You can literally physically feel the difference.
Well, and I think that's awesome. And you have a radio show too. So you and I are both hosts on Transformation Talk Radio. We're members of the Cornelius Stephanie Media Group. How can people tune into your radio show? And then you also have a podcast, right?
Yes. Actually, well, it's actually one and the same as the podcast because my website, as I mentioned, is thatgratitudeguy.com. And I've got a number of things on there, videos, and you can see and you can order books and I do classes and that type of thing. But just recently, as when I, of course, met you is through Transformation Talk Radio is That Gratitude Guy podcast. And that is the first and third Fridays of the month at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'm really enjoying it. I just had my third podcast last week. My fourth one will be coming up a week from today. And I'm really thrilled because I'm able to get some guests that talk about how gratitude shaped their lives, how it inspired them, what motivated them, what made them really focus on what they have. One of the exercises I do a number of exercises to make it very experiential so that you can see things and write down on cards and things to take things that remind you of your gratitude. Put them on your mirror, put them on your computer, put them on your bulletin board, wherever it might be. And one of these exercises is we see how we view each other. And so I say, well, how do I see Diane McClay? And so I write all these things down. How does she see David Brooke? And you're very talented. You got a great smile as an example. You got tremendous energy. And I'm writing all these things down. And the guy comes up to me after, says, I like your little exercise, but I have a question. How come we don't write down their shortcomings? What are we talking about the shortcomings? We're talking about what we're grateful for. It's not all the things we want to improve on. And this is some sort of improvement thing. So, it's so fascinating because, again, make your strengths productive, make your weaknesses irrelevant. I've said that several times. That's what we're focusing on. Gratitude turns what you have into enough. Focus on what you have, not what you don't have. I don't understand people, and you and I talked about that earlier, Diane, that go down the negative path. I don't see it. It's just not a wise path to go down.
Well, I think we talked earlier about how it's hard to have a negative emotion at the same time. But when it's, to me, the challenge for myself and our listeners is that we're all going to be human. We're going to have those times where negativity comes at us. I try to choose not to be around it, but I'm going to bump into it. And I think the challenge is that we can have gratitude, but I think it's really important to integrate gratitude and also incorporate choice into our life. So for me, when something negative happens, the first thing I say is, I'm grateful that happened. I'm grateful that guy cut me off, or I'm grateful that somebody was mean to me. Because I think that when we can be grateful in the moment of negativity, I think that gives us the opportunity to look at things from a different perspective. Mm-hmm. And then our power goes up when we can choose then which way we want to go. But hey, if you reflected to me, Diane, I don't like the way you did this, I can say, you know what, great, David, thank you for reflecting that back to me. I think we have something to learn in those negative moments that we bump into or as a human. And that's where gratitude allows us, it allows us to keep moving forward. It's the grease on the wheels. It's the mechanism that allows us to say, okay, that thing happened. It's crappy. It's terrible. But what can I learn from it, or how can I move forward? Would you agree?
I totally agree. And I think it just goes back to, we talk about the physical, mental, emotional effects of all this. Think about your heartbeat. Think about your heartbeat's not going flying way up like somebody who gets red. They used to open the stomach and it was beet red versus a nice pink. So it stays low. Thank you, David, for reflecting back. Think how good that is for you physically. Another good example.
And to be curious about it, right? Hey, thanks for showing that. I totally disagree or I don't like it. And then the next day I can say, why didn't I like it?
Exactly.
Right. So I think that negativity gives us an opportunity to investigate and explore and be curious. But then once again, we have to shift back into, we have to choose to move through it. We have to choose gratitude, because in the long run, gratitude is going to win out over negativity every day of the week. Yep.
Every time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, David, I can't believe how quickly our conversation goes. I mean, I think we just could make a show about choice and gratitude and making it the fundamentals of life, right?
I think so. We got another new show in mind here. That's already great.
Will you come back?
I will. Of course, I would love to, Diane. That'd be great. Thank you so much for having me.
Parting last words. What's the thing that you want our audience to walk away with today?
Try a gratitude journal. Just give it a try. There's so many negative, destructive, deadly coping mechanisms out there. This is the healthiest, one of the nicest, most fulfilling coping mechanisms that can help you get through the tough times. Try it.
Awesome. And for me, I'm Diane McClay. Our show is on the second and fourth Friday of the month at 1:30 in the afternoon. Just go to the Transformation Talk Radio or look at CorneliaStephanie.com. We have a lot of radio show hosts that take up all the Fridays of the month. Lots of different people, lots of different categories. So tune into that. I'm Diane McClay. I've got your back. And the last thing I want you to know is empower your life and engage your choice. David, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you for listening to The Diane McClay Show, where you are empowered to enact change in your life through choice. You know that little voice in your head that's been telling you to pursue that passion project? Or maybe it's been screaming for you to go outside and explore the great outdoors. That voice is you, and you deserve to be heard. Listen, make a choice, make a change, and watch yourself grow. For more information about Diane or to work with her personally, visit DianeMcClay.com.
Views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the station, its management, or advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.